you mentioned before as well that we choose our body. We choose the timeline we're in. We choose the planet we're in. We also choose the team that we get put in. That was something that really stood out to me in terms of the team. Are we talking like NBA league where there's like many teams, or is it like one versus the other team? What has that been like for your experience?
It's more, and we can simplify it, which helps and doesn't help sometimes, but more, are we directly working towards the expansion of consciousness and the liberation of humanity? Or are we directly working towards the subjugation of consciousness and humanity, and what I call perception management, managing everything so humanity stays in the dark about everything? Now, the darkness, when we play for that side, by putting pressure, subjugation, tyrannical pressure upon the consciousness, that actually causes evolutionary tension, which actually causes people to wake up. Right? I mean, that's so it's still serving, you're still serving the other side, but you're not doing it directly. You're doing it indirectly. So when I talk about what team you play for, you can think of like what you're doing. You are directly working with helping humanity evolve its consciousness and liberating itself. You're doing it directly, right? And there are people that are doing the opposite of what you're doing, spreading lies, misinformation, trying to control, and on and on and on, right? So directly, they're trying to hold it down. Both end up serving the evolution of consciousness anyway. But that's what I meant about playing one side of the team or the other. And we literally get to choose this. And most of us have played both sides many, many times. And that might be difficult for people to hear. You're leading a very centered, holistic, heartfelt, heart-led life. I guarantee you've played a bad guy. I guarantee you've played a bad guy. We play all of it.
Even in this lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Even in certain moments and periods of our life, we might play that role with another person, or, vice versa. And then we switch up the roles. There's a belief system that you call the debt slave reality. And I was like, was he talking about the 9 to 5? What do you mean by the debt slave reality? And how did this conception of this belief system come to be?
You sure you want me to answer that?
Go as deep as you need, brother.
All right, my friend.
As deep as you need.
You got it. Okay. All right. So let's first give context. Okay. So let's talk about what a parasite is. Okay. So most of us know what a parasite is, right? It needs a host and it feeds on it. And then that parasite can, and often does, take control of some of the functions of the host. A parasite can make you crave sugar. It can make you crave certain foods, right? When most of us know this, right? All right. That's kind of what's happening. That's what I said. That's kind of what's happening on a larger scale. There are beings, and unfortunately, there's many humans that assist in this, which is actually how we get to where we are now at this moment. Many beings assisting in this. There are actual beings that exist in a higher frequency and can lower themselves and feed upon what it is that we're doing. They feed upon our energy, and they need a host. And that really where this debt slave mentality actually comes from that. That's literally what it is. This has been going on a very, very long time, And if we looked within ourselves deeply, we would realize, like the books that I write, if you look inside yourself deeply, you will shed yourself of this debt slave reality that we have willfully projected ourselves into, that we have willfully, intentionally, including me, you, and everybody here. We know this is the deal before we get here. We know this is the deal before we get here, because it's an incredible experience, and it forces the evolutionary tension for us to work with ourselves more optimally and more powerfully. And that is the evolution of consciousness, because we leave here with a sturdier back and a more tender heart. That's really what evolution is. So there are parasites that work on our consciousness and our body of energy through harnessing our intention, our attention, by harnessing our attention. And our attention is energy. And that's why they have us look over here, look over here, look over here. And it's always bad. It's always bad, right? They want you backed up, fearful, and angry. They want you to believe what it is that's put out there, because once you believe it, you actually create it for them. We create the matrix. The matrix is inside your mind, and you actually create it for them. So the debt slave mentality does have to do with parasitical type entities that operate, whose intellects are far superior to the human intellect, the intellect that we're currently using in this timeline. It's not superior to our higher mind at all. But to our intellect, absolutely. So once we learn how to detach and discern, they won't be able to harness our attention, which is energy. And once they don't have our attention, which is our energy, and then we have our energy to do just what you said, create. To create as who and what we are, a limitless, immortal fractal of God, rather than a host for parasitical entities. Now, I could go further and further and further and darker, but it's not necessary. And let me just say two more things about this, Emilio. These parasitical entities that I'm talking about, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed at all. Okay? That's number one. Number two, when you work with yourself properly and optimally, they can't do a thing. They can't touch you. That's why raising your frequency, you go up and beyond body consciousness. You surpass the ego-mind identity, which is built upon and with the electromagnetic interference of what is broadcast here, the matrix, which is what forms the ego-mind identity, the EMI, the electromagnetic interference. When you raise your frequency by turning your dial, you're not affected by what goes on here. That's the key, to raise your frequency, to ascend the frequencies. And then these parasites that actually feed upon thoughts, emotions, low frequency. Thoughts and emotions are low frequency. All of them. Thoughts and emotions are low frequency. Now, if we start to rise above body consciousness, we move from thinking to knowing, and from emoting to loving. And that cannot be fed upon. And they know that. So when you work with yourself optimally, they're defeated automatically. If you don't work with yourself optimally and you keep emitting thought patterns and emotional patterns, this is actually the chi that they feed upon. And this is actually what creates the matrix, because we believe it to be real and true. And our reality is created based upon what we believe to be real and true. But it's absolutely energy harvesting through our attention.